Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Welcome to another episode of the Dental MBA podcast, sponsored by eAssist Dental Solutions. I'm Penny Reed, the Chief Growth Officer of eAssist, and it is my pleasure to have my dear friend and colleague, Steve Anderson, with us today. Welcome, Steve.
Penny, great to be with you again. Not the first time you and I have done this. First time on this podcast.
Yes, first time on this podcast.
But always love talking to you. Never a shortage of things to discuss. So
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And for those of you that may not know Steve, and we'll put the longer version of his bio and to learn about him in the show notes. He is the, well, first of all, let me say this. He was named Dental Businessman of the Year by Excellence in Dentistry. That's pretty cool. And he's also the founder of Total Patient Service Institute and Crown Council, and also the Smiles for Life Foundation, which I had many clients back when I was coaching that participated in that as well. So a lot of great things going on, and I'm super excited about this topic today. And I imagine if you work in a dental practice or are somehow involved with a dental office and you're tuned in, that you're going to love this too. Why dentists fail to hear yes more often from their patients. Tell me more about that. That's already got me hooked in here.
So yeah, if you just caught that title, we're going to have a session on failure today. So Penny, here's the backstory for those who may be listening that, this is our first time together. Couple of prereqs here that are important to understand. I'm not a dentist. Never have been. Penny, I shared with you recently, I went back and reviewed the results of an aptitude test that I took many, many years ago coming out of high school. Turns out the number one career recommendation they had for me was to be a dentist. Yeah. Totally missed it, did not even register with me. But one of the aptitudes they tested was finger dexterity. I scored in the 95th percentile. This right here, this is lethal.
Wow.
But it didn't even.
It's not too late, Steve.
Yeah, it's not too late. I always go back. So backstory is that our original business was working with businesses all over the country, and we were dealing with all kinds of different businesses. We had a dentist that got referred to us by one of his patients. He came through one of our courses, kind of apologized for being there. He wasn't really sure why he was there. We weren't either. And he walked away, came back we got a message from him about 3 months later, called up and he said, I need to come see you guys. I need round two. So he came back and he showed us what he had done with what we had shared, what he'd done in his practice. And it was jaw-droppingly amazing, just increase in production and case acceptance. And it was remarkable. And part of that was clinically, he was one of the best trained dentists in the country. He was, was a protege of Dr. L.D. Pankey. He'd been through the whole Pankey curriculum, was just an amazing dentist. And what he said to us, he said, what you shared with me that I implemented in my practice has enabled me for the first time to do what I was trained to do. And he said, I have always known how to do far more dentistry than my patients would ever allow me to do. And he said, this was, in the words of Dr. P. Dawson, who said it's the missing link in dentistry, right? It's the missing link. You can have all the greatest clinical skill in the world, but absent this missing link we're going to talk about today, all that clinical skill will not get all the way to the front lines. So what is it? What is that missing link? So there is this piece of psychology. So can we go to psychology school here?
Let's go to psychology. Yeah, since we didn't go to dental school, let's just for a moment step into the psychology classroom.
Yeah, because I'm a huge believer that dentistry is a high, what I call R factor business, high relationship business. You're one-on-one with the patient, and the success at the end of the day, the success of a dental practice rests first and foremost in that 24 inches between you and the patient. If it doesn't happen there, then all the other stuff that we worry about really does not come into play. All the clinical skills, the billing skills, all the stuff that, all the MBA skills don't come into play until after the patient says yes. So what's going on in that space? Well, so here's the psychology. The piece rarely gets talked about, but is epidemic in dentistry, is a thing that we've labeled, we call it approval addiction. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to define that. Approval addiction, and we've all got it to some degree or another.
I'm pretty sure I have that too, Steve.
we all like to be liked. I mean, you show me somebody that doesn't like to be liked, and I'll show you somebody who nobody wants to be around. There's another word for that, but I won't use that. So we all like to be liked, and it's rooted. It's not just even in psychology. It's rooted in survival. So the longest ongoing study that's been done on satisfaction and life expectancy, so the Harvard study of human development, it's been going on now for over 80 years, the most in-depth study that's ever been done on the topic. And they've studied every variable that has to do with life expectancy, health, diet, exercise, all the different things. And they've, as most people know, they've narrowed it down to one determining factor that has a bigger influence on your satisfaction and longevity, and it's relationships. So the more quality relationships you have, longer term relationships, you've got a better chance of having more satisfaction and a longer life. And we're all wired this way. I mean, it goes back millennia. When we were in a tribal culture, intuitively we knew that survival rested on staying with the tribe, right? If you got separated from the tribe, it's over. And so we all have this need to be connected, to stay connected. Nobody likes to be rejected. So you, me, everybody, Penny, when we get rejected in any way, shape, or form, if we're not careful, what goes on subconsciously is this connection to emotions that are pretty closely related to the fear of death. I mean, I'm cutting to the chase here, but nobody likes to be rejected. Nobody.
Yeah, well, it's a dark, you know what I'm saying? If you were to, it's definitely a dark experience, right?
Correct.
And for some, well, for all of us, not easy to recover from, yet for others, to your point, harder to recover.
Exactly. So now let's fast forward. Let's go into a profession where pretty much on a regular basis, even every day, people walk through the door and their opening volley is, I hate
it here. Yeah.
What other profession is it socially acceptable to say that, except for maybe attorneys?
Maybe.
And so what we found when we got into dentistry was that subconsciously, if we're not careful, there's a tendency in dentistry to overcompensate for that rejection and to really kick it into overdrive to get patients to like us, which is a natural tendency. There's nothing wrong with it until it crosses the line of supervised neglect. So here's where the symptoms show up. First symptom is what we call limiting language. So it's presenting the condition in a manner that makes it sound really less than what it really is, because I don't want to alarm you. I don't want to offend you. I certainly don't want to run you off. And so, it's language like, Penny, we have a little infection here. And we maybe might want to kind of take a look at it, but we'll watch it. We'll wait. We'll see. All of those. I mean, I'm going through those lumped all into one, but it's tentative language.
Minimizing language because we don't.
I don't want to alarm you. Yeah. So it's kind of like sticking my toe in the water to see how much I can get away with, but I don't want to make you mad. And then by default, if you're not thinking about it, then all the words that get used, all the technical clinical words that get used to describe the treatment, make the treatment sound worse than the condition.
Yeah.
So it's like, we have a little infection here, and that's why we're going to schedule you for 4 appointments of scaling and root planing. Well,
Yeah.
nobody wants to be scaled or planed.
I don't want to be planed.
And so these are common sense things, but from a patient's perspective, it is contrary to everything we know about human psychology and decision making and the whole deal. So
Mhm.
at the first piece of this is that this underlying psychological need to be liked, and then the overextension of that is the fear of rejection, approval addiction stands in the way of an open, honest patient relationship where we're able to talk about what's really going on
Mhm.
and talk about complete and comprehensive dentistry. And then what it does is it unravels into what insurance will cover, which is supervised neglect. Well, we'll do what your insurance will cover. And doing what, not wanting to offend the patient. And so it's very insidious. It creeps in almost to the point that it's almost undetectable until we raise it to the consciousness level. It's like, what's really going on here and what can we do about it? So the good news is that there's a workaround. You can't cure this necessarily because we all have that need to be connected, the need to be liked, but there is a workaround so that we can be open, honest with the patient, stay committed to a high standard of care, do more complete and comprehensive dentistry, and preserve the patient relationship. There is a way to do that. So that's one. Now, here's the other side of this that stands in the way. And this is MBA. Okay, this is the MBA lesson. Here's the business side of this. Dentistry, mistakenly, but with good intent, mistakenly has adopted, in most cases, the scientific model as a business model. Okay, so what's the scientific model? Scientific model is what gets taught in every business school, every medical school, anything that has to do with science teaches the scientific model, which is diagnose, figure out what the problem is, treatment plan it, come up with a solution, present it, and then fix it, fix the problem. That's the scientific model. It works for science, perfectly fine for that. You got to figure out what's going on, come up with a solution based on what we know, and then go ahead and fix it. But when we translate that to a business model, then here's what it sounds like. I'll translate the scientific model into consumer speak. Here's what I hear as a consumer. Come on in the first time, and we're going to charge you up front to find problems you never knew you had. And then we're going to work up a solution to those problems that is going to be more than you ever imagined possible that you'd have to pay. And we're going to present that to you, and you're going to get really excited about doing it. That's what I hear as a patient.
Yeah,
and so
that's true. That's true.
because of that, it's like, and basically what it is, everybody says this, you got to come at first visit, you have to have the exam before you can have the cleaning. We go through this conversation with patients all the time, and they say, I don't want the exam. I don't want the x-rays. I just want the cleaning.
Yeah.
And basically what they're saying is, I don't want any more problems. I got more than my share, and I am not coming to you to get loaded up with more issues. Nobody in America woke up this morning and said, life's good. I have no problems, none. And satisfaction in life comes from solving problems. I'm going to go to my dentist for more problems. Nobody said that.
Sign me up.
Yeah. And so that's why we get the pushback all day, every day. I don't want the exam. I don't want the x-rays. Just clean my teeth. And so we got resistance from the very first, because dentistry, we've set it up contrary to human nature and how we naturally make decisions. We don't want problems. Dentistry is naturally looking for problems. So science, yes, but as far as a business model, not happening. Yeah. So that's from a business standpoint, the business model. You got to start with the right business model for starters. And here's the starting point. So here's my question to you, Penny. What's more powerful from a decision-making and a motivation standpoint as far as human nature? What's more powerful, needs or wants? Beyond food, clothing, and shelter, let's say those are taken care of. What's a more powerful motivator, needs or wants?
Well, I would say that it's wants that many of us have convinced ourselves are needs. For example, if there's a designer purse that I really, really want, I will convince myself that I need it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole want to,
Correct.
increasing that want to.
Exactly. So we're far more motivated by what we want than what we need. Again, beyond subsistence level. I mean, this goes back to Maslow, hierarchy of
Think
needs.
about it.
But
We all
beyond,
need to be eating an apple and
correct.
vegetables, and yet Krispy Kreme and Dunkin' Donuts are still in business.
So we've all done it. We've all done what we wanted to do at
Right.
some point over what we needed to do. But dentistry is wired to exclusively, usually talk about needs. You come in, we diagnose, this is what you need to do, this is what you should do. So you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, and you spend all day shooting on people. And it just doesn't fly. And that's why we get so much pushback of comments from patients like, well, is my insurance going to cover all this? In fact, did your insurance cover that Gucci purse there, Penny? I don't think it did. But
No,
will my
no, but
insurance
if
cover
there
all
was
of
an
this?
insurance that did, I would need that insurance.
Exactly. It's like, my insurance cover all this. I can't afford it. That's too expensive. That's more than I was expecting. I need to go talk to my husband, my wife, my mother-in-law, my psychic about this,
Yeah.
get all the pushback because the business model is broken. So the first charge here, and here's really the first step, is check your business model. Because if you have, with good intent, unknowingly adopted the scientific model as your business model, what I'd like to challenge and suggest, rethink the business model. Is your business model based on a need-based model or a want-based model? And what we find is practices that align themselves with how people naturally make decisions, which is we do the things we want to do, many times at the sacrifice of what we need to do, that those practices ultimately are far more successful. They get higher levels of case acceptance. They do more quantity of dentistry than those who are strictly need-based. Because when you really think about it, what percentage really in dentistry, what percentage of procedures are truly, truly, truly need-based versus want-based? Most of dentistry is elective.
Mhm.
Now, we know whole health nature of it today. There's so much that's connected, right? And at the end of the day, it's really a patient value decision is what's of value to me? What do I value? And what am I willing to do about it?
Mhm.
What do I want?
So true.
So this seems like such a basic fundamental thing, but it's violated every day because it's so easy to slip into the need-based model. Here's what you need. This is what you should do, versus really taking a step back and asking myself, do I really understand what Penny Reed wants? And am I going to be a healthcare partner to help her get what she really wants? Some patients don't know what they want until somebody sits down with them and helps them
Oh,
work.
absolutely. And the first time that you ask them, they often look confused.
Correct. And so it's really walking through that process to really have a dialogue about what do you really want, help them discover what's possible, and then come to an agreement
Mhm.
about what are we really doing there? What are we really trying to accomplish? And so it's what I call the yes before the yes. So the standard of care at Total Patient Service, and it's why we call our company Total Patient Service, TOPS for short, but Total Patient Service is the standard of care is I don't have permission to diagnose. I don't have permission to tell the patient what they need unless and until we have agreement together on what the patient really wants. Until you say to me, Penny, yes, that's what I want, and we agree on that,
Mhm.
I don't have permission to go into the need space.
Mhm.
And that's a different approach.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is. It's a total mindset shift. And I know when you and I visited before, when we were planning the session, I shared with you that the only time when I've spoken to audiences and I've asked what the perception is most important to patients. And there were choices of cosmetic, appearance, function, avoidance of pain, or only what my insurance will pay. Only what my insurance will pay was either number one or number two every
Mhm.
time, except when I speak to dental students. They're the only ones that don't have the whole cost factor in there. And as
Yeah,
you and I have discussed, it's because they haven't been rejected yet.
correct.
Right. And so it does take that intent and that whole mindset shift, because if not, we're just so busy. Yeah, I agree. Everybody stays caught up in well, I don't know if they're willing to do that. Um,
100%. And just and so into the science of it. So that's what we say is that the 15% of success in the business of dentistry, 15% of it, and it's the foundation, is based on your clinical expertise. And it's foundational. You got to have it. It is critically important. You take that piece of it away, you got nothing. You
mhm,
have to deliver great quality of care. That's a given. And it doesn't guarantee success. Got to
so
have it,
true.
but it's not the guarantee. 85% of success is the ability to help your patients get what they want and to have the right business model and the right environment that enables you to deliver great quality care. So it really comes down to success in dentistry. If we take the clinical skill as a given, success is really based on the business model.
Yeah.
So choose your business model with care and make sure you understand it, that you have, just like you have a philosophy of clinical care. And we challenge every dentist to have a written philosophy of care in writing so your team understands exactly what your clinical standard of care is. But just like you have a clinical standard of care, you have a business philosophy written in writing so that the entire team understands this is how we run our business. This is our business philosophy, how we interact with people.
Mhm.
They're not teeth. Dentistry is not about the teeth. It's about the people attached to the teeth. So this is how we interact with the people that we're, excuse me, that we're charged with taking care of. Is
Mhm.
this is our philosophy of business. This is our philosophy of care. Here's how we run our business. So if there's a takeaway from our conversation today, Penny, it
Mhm.
would be a couple fold. One, what's your business philosophy? Do you have that? Do you have it in writing? So what's your business philosophy? Number two, is it written down? And then number three, what are the mechanisms you have in place to combat this thing that everybody has? We all have fear of rejection. We all have approval addiction.
Mhm.
What are the systems you put in place to work around that so it doesn't become an obstacle to providing great quality of care? And it starts from the very first interaction you have with a patient to every point of encounter with every patient every day, because
Yeah.
it will slip back in a moment's notice. That limiting language we talked about,
Mhm.
it's the first symptom. When things start getting unraveled, and that's the first place it shows up. And it always comes unraveled. You constantly got to be putting it all back
It's like
together.
gravity,
It
right?
is.
I mean, if you don't intentionally hold something up, it will, it will fall. I'm curious about the business philosophy, and when you're working with doctors to come up with that business and clinical philosophy, do you find that it's difficult sometimes for them to get started, especially if they've been in practice for a while? Or do you find that once they are asked to do it, that they're just kind of surprised at how well it just kind of flows, out of their mind and onto paper, or a combination? What's the
Yeah, I'll
usual?
tell you one of my favorite days. One of my favorite days of the week in our office is Monday afternoon. Now, let me tell you why.
Okay.
So We do a lot of different courses at Tops. One of them is our total immersion course, where it's 2 days of just immersion in case acceptance and how you put the whole business model together, and then all the systems that are a part of that. So, and my mandate to them after we go through all those is, here's where you're going to start, and here's what I want you to do Monday. Just walk into your practice Monday. Don't think about it. Just do these simple things. And I just give them like 2 or 3 things. Just do this on Monday. And inevitably, Monday afternoon, my phone blows up. And the common response is, Steve, I'm not sure what happened, but over the weekend, our patients changed. I was like they're responding totally different. Like they're saying things they've never said before, and they're accepting treatment. Hold up. Well, the patients didn't change. You did, right? You start doing things differently, and the patient response will change.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with the doing, right? You eliminate limiting language, and it's amazing what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start putting some of these things in place. So I'm going to give, to that end, Penny, I'm going to give everybody an action item. Okay. So this is a takeaway. Do this today, do this tomorrow with every new patient. Every new patient you see tomorrow, here's your challenge. So this is what we call an orienting comment. And this particular orienting comment is what we named a long time ago. We call it the permission statement. Mm-hmm. And it gives you the freedom to actually to tell the truth to the patient. So if you were the patient, Penny, what I would say as a new patient is I would say, Penny, I'm going to get started today. If you're the dentist, I'm going to get started today with my routine exam. And as I do that, I'd like your permission to share with you everything I see that I would want to know if I were you, if I were the patient. That's my standard of care. What would I want? You, in turn, have permission to ask any questions and then make the final decision. Do some of it, all of it, none of it. Mm-hmm. Totally up to you. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
And so what happens, and that's the response, they always respond the same way. It's like, in many cases, they'll say, well, of course, that's mm-hmm. what I came here for. But what it does, the underlying message is you're in control. Mm. Nobody's going to pressure you to do anything you don't want to do. I'm just going to do my job and tell the truth. You, in turn, you ask any questions of anything you don't understand, and then you're making the final decision. So that one simple skill, that one simple action, that's mm-hmm. one of many, it changes the patient dynamics. So that becomes part of your whole business model, is giving your patients permission to be a partner in the process. Mm-hmm. You're not just telling and imposing, you're asking and inviting the dialogue for better understanding and keeping the responsibility where it rests, which is with the patient. Ultimately, the patient has the responsibility to make the decision for their own health, wellness, their future based on what they want. And so we're stating that mm-hmm. so that everybody's clear on whose role and responsibility is what. My role and responsibility as the practitioner, tell the truth. Your role and responsibility as the patient, make the decision. So it's just another way of doing that. But what we found is it gives the practitioner the freedom to speak openly, mm-hmm. gives the patient the peace of mind knowing that they're not going to be pushed into doing something they don't want, and it changed the dynamic. So that's my challenge. That's one of dozens of different systems that help work around this whole approval addiction piece. And if you don't think you've got it, that means you've got it even worse than you think.
Yeah, you've got like a double whammy case of it.
Absolutely. And even some of the most confident dentists that we've worked with, the approval addiction thing creeps in places you would never expect.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like how you manage your team. Mm. That's a whole other topic, but happens
We'll have to have
there.
you back for that one.
Yeah, it happens there just as much, even sometimes more than what happens with your patients. So it's, in AA terminology, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous just because it's one of the most proven behavior change systems that's ever been designed. I'm a researcher, so I'm always looking for stuff that works. And this is not this is not a confession. This is not an AA meeting. But there's a phrase in AA that I love, which is the elephant in the living room. So the elephant in the living room is this big, gargantuan, huge problem that everybody knows is there, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
And that's what approval addiction, fear rejection is to dentistry. It's there. We all recognize and kind of know it's been there, but nobody wants to talk about it because it's so big and so messy and most don't know how to deal with it. So it's like, maybe if we
We
ignore
just kind of
it,
dance around it and it's
it'll go
exhausting.
away.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do that. There is a workaround. There's a way to address this so it doesn't become an obstacle. It becomes an opportunity. This becomes an opportunity to come up with a different methodology, a different system that opens the door to more comprehensive care, hearing yes more often from the patient, and make it easier for both the practitioner and the patient to work together in a way that's compelling, that makes them want to come back, that makes the dental experience one of their most desired instead of one of the most dreaded.
Yeah. I love that. And I imagine the patients feel more respected as well, right? It's like,
Huge.
hey, you're in the driver's seat. Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
our goal is, when you think about it, Penny, if you really think about it in just raw numbers, dentistry has become the frontline healthcare profession. Dentistry sees more of America more often than any other one single segment of healthcare.
It's amazing.
More than the family practice physician. Most people only go to their family practitioner if they're sick. More than anybody else, we see more of America more than anybody else. And so from my standpoint, I say, if that's the case, then we should be the leaders. We should be the leaders in healthcare, showing the rest of healthcare how to do this and how to do it right. We should be the ones setting the standard for patient service so that when patients experience what it's really supposed to be like, that they go everywhere else in healthcare, to their family practice, their PCP, to their dermatologist, their whoever, and they say, I wish everyone would treat me the way they treat me in the dental office because they got it dialed in. So that's our mission at Total Patient Service, is to make that patient experience stand out and be the hallmark, the standard for what healthcare should be doing across the board. We can do it. We're the leaders now.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I love that. I love that. And I think when we talked before, you have an ebook that that our viewers, listeners, can get from you guys on why case presentations fail. And I bet that would be awesome, not only for the doctors to read, but also for the team. Is that a
So this is a take it back to the team tool that you can use. So it's called Why Case Presentations Fail. It covers some of what we've talked about today, plus some very, very specific carrybacks to the team, specific things you can do to really clear the path for hearing yes more often from your patients. So that is our gift to anybody that's listening. So you can just email us at answers@totalpatientservice.com. So answers@totalpatientservice.com, and just request why case presentations fail. And mention Penny. Penny's the magic word. Penny Reed, Dental MBA podcast.
Okay, awesome.
And our team will shoot that out to you. It's a great, really a great outline for the beginnings of what every practice can do to adopt the right business model so that it makes it easier for patients to say yes to needed treatment.
Well, not only does it do that, but I bet that your teams enjoy what they do even more because of the types of relationships that they have with patients.
Well, that's the shift and this is what we find is when you shift from trying to get patients to do what they need to do, when you shift from that, and that's heavy lifting all day long, pushing treatment, Two, helping patients get what they want. It's a whole different dynamic. The energy level shifts, and you go home excited and enthusiastic about what you've been able to do because you've been helping people every day get what they want versus the struggle of trying to get them to do what they need. It's a whole different emotional energy around that and a lot more fulfilling.
That's so awesome. That's awesome. Well, every time that I get to have a conversation with you, I come away learning things I know that that our viewers have, and it's always a pleasure. And I mean it when I say we'll have to have you back to talk about this team part, because as you well know, that's a big pain point for many practices out there, whether it's a solo practice or a group practice or a DSO. It's not only finding great team members, but retaining them. And I know there's a lot to learn with that as well. So maybe we can do that next time.
Thank you, Penny, for everything you do, for spreading the word and making dentistry a better place.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Great visiting with you.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.